RotoGrinders. Welcome to RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderHD, BlenderHD. You're going to follow me on Twitter. And it's Monday, October 30th. And you know what we do on Mondays? It's Mondays with MCCOOL. I bring in James MCCOOL, the co-author, with me on the theory of daily fantasy sports. It's a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass you can pick up at theoryofdfs.com, as well as the advanced players course with the custom Excel tools that I use in tandem to build my NFL DFS lineups, as well as another tool that is coming out today on RotoGrinders. So keep your eyes peeled on that. We'll be talking a little bit more about it tomorrow, and maybe a little bit more about it with James in the following weeks. Hit that thumbs up button, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Good morning, everyone in the chat. Cobra Kai is back, says, imagine being the dummy you tried Dameon Pierce yesterday. Why didn't I click Gus Edwards instead? James, Dameon Pierce was easily could have had 2 touchdowns. I mean, if you were watching, I mean, he literally got in the end zone, practically got in the end zone, and then he got stuffed like twice on another goal line carry. So, I mean, those are the margins when it comes to running backs. When it comes to is Lamar Jackson going to have 2 rushing touchdowns, or is Gus Edwards going to have 3 rushing touchdowns? It comes down to who gets stuffed and what's the play call and who gets stuffed. And if you don't get stuffed, you win. And if you do get stuffed, you lose. So as far as your Sunday, did you get stuffed or did you get unstuffed?
I got stuffed. I thought I played this week well, but I ended up trying to push for a min cash towards the end of the day. I came up short less than 1 fantasy point on the last Trey McBride catch or something like that. I think that was what killed me. It just is what it is. I was buried about 7 minutes into the slate when Bryce 68-yard receiving touchdown, and then only finished with 15 actual rushing yards for the entire day. So it's just one of those days. I thought that I played it well, and maybe I was a little bit too contrarian in things when I looked at my ownerships after the fact. I was like, yeah, I probably could have had a little bit more chalk here or there, but I thought that I played well and just didn't get anything for it.
Well, 2 things that I noticed on Sunday, that we had 13 games, a lot with lower totals, but a lot of these games actually went over their total. I mean, the games actually were halfway decent for fantasy scoring. And when you mentioned that contrarian approach, it made more sense, even though the chalk condensed more at running back. The heuristic would be that, okay, I could bring it up on Results DB, right? Which is free, rotogrinders.com/resultsdb. I'll take a look at the Millie, right? We take a look at this running back ownership. I mean, it's really very condensed on Breece Hall, Alvin Kamara, Isaiah Pacheco. And the wide receiver ownership was much more spread out, right? You had Flowers, Thielen, Brown, Collins got up to 20%, which I didn't.
I was blown away by that
high. But it paid. It turned out that your natural inclination would be to, well, if people are going to play Breece Hall, I'll play Jonathan Taylor or DeAndre Swift or Bijan Robinson or Dameon Pierce or what, some of these other guys. And then at wide receiver, it's it's so spread out that you don't feel like that, other than what I thought was maybe Zay Flowers was the only thing of okay, well, don't play. I didn't play Zay Flowers as a one-off. If I was gonna play Zay Flowers, it was being a Lamar stack, which was the highest owned quarterback. But it turns out that really, if you ate the chalk at running back and then found a way to get different combinations at wide receiver, that was kind of the path to first place. And bringing up this ownership, I mean, how owned did you think Breece Hall was going to be? Because I think the surprise, to me, the surprise was Tony Pollard, because I projected Tony Pollard to be nearly 20% owned. And in the Millie, he came in at 9. And we see the difference between the $20 milli and the $5.55 milli. Like Pollard was 21%. Like look at this running back ownership in the 5.55. This is what I expected. I expected 4 running backs to be chalky: Hall, Kamara, Pacheco, and Pollard. What order? I don't know. I expected Hall to be number 1, but then I don't know. The next 3 kind of like there's a mix there. But then you go to the $20 milli, and you had McCaffrey, you had Taylor, you had Etienne. You had guys more owned than Pollard. Seem like they're like the regular folks, the good old, the unwashed masses. They don't like Tony Pollard, and the spreadsheet virgins. Like we modeled Tony Pollard as an elite running back for an offense that had a 26 implied point total in a game where they scored 43 points. And if you told me before the slate the Cowboys were going to score 43 points on offense, I mean, I had Pollard in 6 out of 12 of my lineups. I may have just lock buttoned him into 12, and then I would have woken up and been like, how does he only have 6.5 points? What happened there? So were you higher on projecting ownership for Pollard, but did you also like project him well? Like, what would your running back your personal, like from a player projection standpoint, what I call, and I think Davis said on his the Gilcast that the models in the industry were like wish casting Tony Pollard, were trying to hopium, it's eating the hopium, sucking in the hopium. Like it can't be that these Cowboys games like this year have been like outside of 2 standard deviations of like how they run out from either a blowout perspective or an inefficiency perspective, or the defense is scoring touchdowns. What going forward, should Tony Pollard project the way that he projects? Because I could see, like, I think the pricing's already come out for next week's slate. I know they're facing the Eagles, but Pollard's going to come down to like the same prices like Pacheco and Taylor, and 6,300. And I'm pretty sure that I'll be looking at that going, yep, clicking that button again. Is he just gonna turn into Fancy Joe Mixon?
Well, he's already Fancy Joe Mixon,
Uh-oh.
I think. What did your industry aggregate have him projected for?
What? I don't have that up, but I had Tony Pollard as the top running back in raw point. Second highest running. No, CMC had the highest raw points.
Okay.
But Tony Pollard had outside like he had slight, like, I think the aggregate was slightly higher on Pollard than Kamara. Although I think Kamara's range of outcomes is much now. Like in cash games and on DraftKings, I played Hall, Kamara, Pacheco. I played Kamara over Pacheco only because Kamara's range of outcomes with his target share is just so massive that, like, a game where he fails, he gets 12 to 15 points. Right? And Pollard, a little bit more touchdown dependent. But they were, if you told me you had Kamara a point higher than Pollard, that would be fine. But like Pollard was clearly projected better than everyone. I mean, all these other 6K running backs, like by far.
I had Tony Pollard projected for 16.14.
So you were low. That's a lower number.
Yeah, I was lower on him than the industry. That's why I asked. So my running back pecking order was Christian McCaffrey at the top at 22. At Alvin Kamara second at 20.5. Then I had Raheem Mostert at 18.6. So that was where I was significantly different on the industry, was Raheem Mostert being RB3. He came in at 3% owned in the 150. I had him higher.
I projected him to be like 6%, 7% owned.
Yeah, I had him projected in ownership at 4%. So I saw that and like I was like, he has the second best odds down of any player on the entire slate, right behind Christian McCaffrey. Like at 4% owned, that's hilarious. So
look at our boy. James, look at our boy. I just wanted to highlight. Look at our boy here at 3% owned.
Yeah.
5,800 Joe Mixon scored 20 points.
He's
He's
boring Tony Pollard.
Right. Boring Tony Pollard outscored fancy Joe Mixon.
Yeah. So Pollard, the thing about it is that like this is going to be a hot take. He's just not the guy. He's just not the guy. We see it all the time. We see, and this is like hand in the dirt football knowledge, right? Where like there's guys that can handle being the dude, and then there's guys that are a really good compliment. The other like prime example of this was Juju Smith-Schuster, who was so good as a wide receiver too. So good when he could just in the zone because everybody was ignoring him for Antonio Brown. He was so good as a wide receiver too. And then he becomes wide receiver 1, and it's like the dude can't beat man coverage. Like he literally cannot beat press coverage. He's too weak. So that kind of a situation with a wide receiver where like a wide receiver goes from being a wide receiver 2 to being a wide receiver 1. We see Thielen right now is just shredding as a wide receiver 1, right? Like that dude, his route running is so good, and his ability to beat man coverage and beat those press so good, but we never really saw it with him as a wide receiver 2, right? So with Pollard, when we have these receiving backs, it's kind of the same thing with DeAndre Swift, right? Like DeAndre Swift, he was so good as the satellite back. And like he's been really good with the Eagles this year too, right? Like he can probably play as a 1, but he was so good as an RB2 to come in and spell for Jamal Charles or for Jamal Williams. And Pollard was so good coming behind Zeke because what defenses were planning for and what he was able to do, his efficiency lied in being the running back 2. And now that Pollard has to be the 1 and has to be the volume guy and has to try to wear down the defense himself, he's just not that guy. He's just not a running back 1. So his efficiency is down. His fantasy points per touch is down. His goal line usage is there, but he sucks on the goal. Like he's just not built for that role. You gotta have a certain kind of build for that kind of role. I mean, people always made fun of Zeke for being fat or whatever, but like if you're gonna be sprinting into 300-pound linemen, you gotta have some meat on your bones. It's one of the reasons why David Montgomery can do it, because he's kind of a chunky dude. So I just think this is my hands in the dirt opinion on Tony Pollard, but his efficiency is just not where people want it to be. And people are going to hang on to him for like years until he RB3 on the Steelers. And it's the same thing with Le'Veon Bell. Like people are going to treat him like Le'Veon Bell, hang on to the glory years, and he's just not going to be the guy. He's just not.
Here's another dude that could be the guy, and he could have been the guy yesterday. What was the deal with Jonathan Taylor? I mean, I didn't play Jonathan Taylor in my 12 lineups, but he goes 12 for 94 in the first half, and then nothing. And then Zach Moss is in. Like, have you seen a team run running backs that way? Of like, okay, well, we're going to give you all the work in the first half, and the other guy, you get all the work in the second half. I'm sure plenty of people were like high-fiving in the first half. You played $6,200 Jonathan Taylor, who could be the guy. He's one of those people that could be the guy.
Yep.
And you figure Zach Moss, he's not the guy. The Colts 12, but he breaks off a big run. He's 6 yards from the bonus. It's halftime. Like, this is obviously going to end up being, you're going to need Jonathan Taylor in order to win. No Taylor, no cash. And then he ends with the same exact stat line. And you go, what happened? Right? It's like, and it's not like this wasn't like a non-competitive game. It's like this was a competitive game.
When he didn't score the touchdown, he got mad and complained on the sideline. And then coach was like, we got another running back that has been fantastic without you here. Going to use him in the second half if you want to be a dick about it.
That's not confirmed. You're just speculating. You're speculating.
I'm just speculating. But like the way that played out, man, and with the way that the off season happened with Jonathan Taylor, and he's already on like thin ice with the organization and blah 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 blah. I just think that there are kind of two makes sense scenarios of that one where he got into the doghouse because he complained about not getting the touchdown after doing all the work. And then the other side aggravated his ankle. There's kind of those two things. And I haven't seen anything about him aggravating an ankle. And usually there's more of a hush about doghouse stuff. So more hand in the dirt football knowledge guy things. But I just think that he pissed off the coaches and they just turned Zach Moss the second half.
Since we're on running backs, I got to bring up our weekly discussion on this guy. $6,000 on yesterday's slate. I took a shot in one lineup because I'm just going to martingale this until it works out. Bijan Robinson, he did score a touchdown, a rushing touchdown. He got 11 carries.
Yep.
He got no targets.
Yep.
Ritter came out of the game and Heineke came in. Is Bijan another one of those? I mean, he's a rookie. I mean, it's not like he's not over the hill or anything, but is he one of those people where like he's fancy, he's more like fancy Curtis Samuel or fancy Rondell, more like we view him as like, the starting running back for the Falcons, but the Falcons don't view him as the starting running back of the Falcons, and they don't even consider him. Arthur Smith is not like, let me get Bijan into space by throwing these, screen passes or slants or something. And it's like, no, Tyler Algier is our starting running back, and then we'll throw out Bijan to throw. Like he looks at it as, the defense will think Bijan is out there, so they're going to have to put like a nickel back on him for coverage. And to screw with their head, we're just going to rush him up the middle, right? Like it's like, so you wasted your defensive coverage for us to not throw the ball to him. Like, that's what it seems like. Like, how do you go this, especially the game that was played out by the Falcons, that Bijan has 11 touches and none of them are a reception, and not even, I don't think he had a single target.
Arthur Smith's a Chad, dude. he just doesn't care, man. He's there's not really a logical answer for what Arthur Smith is doing. Like the best tweet that came out of yesterday, Arthur Smith had the tight end 2 throw to the tight end 3 while Kyle Pitts was blocking in the red zone. He's such an alpha, dude. He just does not care at all. He just trolls everyone every single week. And like the thing is, we would think it was hilarious. We would think it was hilarious if they were a really bad team, right? Like we would think it was so funny if they were really bad. And like if management and the owners were like, we're getting rid of this Arthur Smith guy. He's doing these things and wasting our talent and everything like that. But they win enough games to be in playoff consideration. So safe. And that's why everybody's so mad about it. It's because like this team could be really good. And like, for sure, I think that if this team were coached by a Kyle Shanahan or a Sean McVay or, one of these offensive coaches, like I do think that it could be something where this team could be really, really good. But one, Ritter's not the guy. Like we pretty much know that Ritter's not the guy. And their offensive line is fine, but not incredible. Okay, like this team has some holes. They just have Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts. And I guess Drake London, even though Drake London has not been incredible this year. So like, I just think that Arthur Smith's hilarious. I love the guy. I love every game plan that he throws out there. And I love watching people still trying to say, we know that this is what should be happening. Why are you not doing it? And Arthur Smith just like flipping the bird every ounce along the way. Every yard gained by Michael Pruitt is just another, notch in his beard against the fantasy community. It's the best thing that I've ever seen.
Donnie Watson says in the chat, would Andy Reid be mocked for doing it? Or would it be a smart play call? And my response to that, but my response to that is that, and remember, I'm not a football takes person. From what I gather, Andy Reid's play calling, especially around the goal line, he's putting the ball in the hands of his best players. Like even the trickery with Tyreek Hill, and now you had Kadarius Toney. It's a flip to Kelsey. You have Mahomes at quarterback. Yeah, these are little fancy plays, and maybe yeah, the third tight end is the one that catches the touchdown, but it was all orchestrated by all the actual skillful players on the team. The Falcons are doing these it's James, would we be talking about this type of play calling if it was like he flipped it to Drake London and threw it to Kyle Pitts? It's like to Bijan, like you take a look at Bijan, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts, and you go, if the play calling was that play calling and it involved those people, we'd be like, okay, that seems like something, but it's like Jonnu Smith and Michael Pruitt and Tyler Algier and third wide receivers that are off the practice squad. It's like, no, we're going to draw up complex plays and we're going to have the guys that are on league minimum do it when we have our top draft picks and our best skill position players. They're the decoys. And it's not just one. It's not okay, it's not like the Tyreek Hill situation with the Dolphins. It's like, if they want to use Tyreek Hill as a decoy and constantly throw to Durham Smythe, that's one thing. But it's like, no, we have 3 decoys. We can use the decoys in any way that we want.
Hear me out, okay? What could be more brilliant than having Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, and Drake London as terrific decoys that the defense respects because of their pedigree, while you just win games with Michael Pruitt? It's brilliant, dude. It is literally, I'm going to fight my cat, but it is brilliant that he is doing it. Think about it. That could be an actual game plan for him. He could be thinking, okay, the defense is going to pay a lot more attention to Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson and Drake London, and when they're in the game doing things, the defense is going to overcommit to them. And then I know that I have NFL that can play in the NFL that they're second string, third string, but they're still NFL players. And they are going to be the ones that are open all of the time because the defense paying too much attention to Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts. The dude is playing 12D chess. The guy rules.
Could be Travis in the chat, who's a regular here. He won, James. He won the 100K at the afternoon slate GPP. So congratulations. He wanted to ask about bankroll management, but he didn't post the question. So post the question if you want about bankroll. Don't spend it all in one place. What other bankroll management thing? I think that the number one thing is, as James McCool goes to spend it all in one place. The main thing when it comes to it is that just because you won one slate doesn't make you the god of DFS. You didn't figure it out, right? Variance is a thing. So there are plenty of people that they win $100,000, and next thing you know, they're playing the luxury box and they're max entering the millie, right, for $2,000 or whatever like that. I would not suggest doing that. But I'm coming from a much grinder type perspective of now you have a real now you got a real bankroll. So now you're not gonna be able to replenish $100,000 with a snap of fingers, right? So play a small percentage of your bankroll and play it in the still try to get the best edges, right? Don't just I'm going to splurge. I'm going to play the 1650. I'm going to play 10 entries into the 555. That's just the way to, at the end of the next thing you know, at the end of the season, you're down $16,000. It's but I won 100K. Yeah, because you didn't just automatically figure it out. It's I could do this every week. It's no, these are very, very, very special scenarios that I'm not saying that it doesn't come out of skill. It's just that you've realized your EV, right? So don't think it's well, now that I realize my EV, I'm going to realize my EV like every week. No, you're not. No, you could go 6 months with that. This has to keep you held up for the downswings, right? Could be Travis asks, would you keep the whole $100,000 as a bankroll or take some money out to invest and play with a smaller? What defines your bankroll is up to. It's not about the money that's in the site. It has nothing to do with that. My whole bankroll isn't on all the sites. I've been in banks, and I've been I put in my IRA. I mean, like this, you have your life roll, you have your bankroll, you have, I mean, whatever the hell you want to do. But I mean, if you're only going to be playing $500 worth of volume, there's no reason to have $100,000 in a DraftKings account that's accruing no interest. So, like, sure, I mean, you could withdraw you could draw $90,000 and it still be part of your bankroll. It just doesn't happen to be on DraftKings. And also remember, as Michael Dompier would say in the chat, remember, as of right now, your net profit is probably pretty decent. So probably owe $25,000, $30,000 in tax if you're in the United States.
He's in Canada, so he didn't.
He's in Canada. Oh, okay. So he's
fine. So all the people who are mentioning taxes, he doesn't have to pay Justin Trudeau. No, it's fine. Here's my advice. God, everybody is just saying taxes.
Well, people don't.
Here's my advice.
This is, you know how I could James, you know the biggest tell on winning and losing players?
Yeah, the winning ones know how to pay taxes on it.
Right. The biggest winning and losing is not knowing how DraftKings or FanDuel does the tax documents, because that's a sign that you have never gotten a 1099 from DraftKings or FanDuel. They send you for fantasy, they send you a 1099 as if you're like an independent contractor, almost like a MISC, a 1099 MISC for your net profit. It doesn't matter. You could never withdraw. It doesn't matter. If you made $20,000 net, they'll send it to you as if they paid you $20,000.
Right.
Even if you withdrew, you didn't withdraw, whatever. It's like none of that matters. So, like, you know, if it could be Travis has, let's say his net profit right now is $94,000 or something, right? Like, if he never played on DraftKings for the rest of the year, he'd get a 1099. I mean, if he wasn't in Canada, right? No, he'd still get it. It's just that he wouldn't have to pay taxes on that income in Canada. But that's what you'd get. So it has nothing to do with drawing, none of anything involving putting money in and out in sites has nothing. I know people, James, top players that literally deposit and withdraw like on a weekly basis. Like they will after Sunday, they will withdraw most of the money. And then on Friday, they will literally redeposit money.
So I did that, or prefer to do that. And then DraftKings messed up my deposit limits.
Right, of course, I know.
And well, I'm just saying, like that was something that happened to me. Here's my advice. So I would sit down, because after everybody, whoever has a good hit of 5 figures or more thinks that they can just like jump in, you know, like, oh man, here we go. Like now I get to, you know, play the higher dollar contest, and I get to play the 5-5 or whatever. Take shots. And that's fine. I think that it's important to understand that you now have a bigger bankroll and that you can now play with more if you are comfortable. So there are a couple things here. First off, you need to sit back and you need to think about how to treat DFS moving forward. That's the biggest thing. I always talk, like my big thing is talking about goals, right? What is your goal with DFS now that you have hit with enough to develop a decent bankroll to start playing with somewhat decent volume? Remember, $100,000 is an okay bankroll. It's okay, but it's not a bankroll where you're going to have significant volume. It's a bankroll where now you can have more volume than you did before, but not like in the levels of like Blender, right? You're not in the levels
no. I want to highlight that you're not in the levels of Awesemo and Brick 75
and and BK Reader and stuff like that. Like
right.
you're not.
You're in my level, right? Because I'm a fucking nit. So yeah, you are on my level. But I don't play like what's my volume? Like dude, on DraftKings, I played $1,700 worth of volume on Sunday. I had 800 on
Your volume is still very muted. Yeah, your volume is still pretty muted. So you can play. You just need to think about, okay, what do you want to come from your DFS play now? That's the first spot. Do you want to try to continue building a bankroll to where you can then try to develop a secondary income source? Do you want to try to play in a way that allows you to have more opportunities for these larger hits? Do you want to, or do you still want to play for fun? Like, is it something where you now want to try to have a bait? Like, figure out what your goals are with your DFS play. After you figure that out, then that is going to determine how much your bankroll should be on any given slate or week or month or year, whatever. I am a big fan personally of not keeping my money on DraftKings. I like to deposit each week or month, depending on what sports are going on. If it's NFL, then if it's MLB/NBA, then I deposit monthly. Those kind of things are more of personal preference, but the big thing is understanding how much you want to, like, what you want to make from DFS, and that should determine how much you have in play each given week, depending on your bankroll. So for 100K, if that's your bankroll overall, right? Like, you still need to figure out how much you'd like to play on each individual daily slate, how much you'd like to play on each individual weekly slate, depending on what sport you are playing and how long the seasons last. It's different for NFL and MMA and stuff like that. There's a lot that comes down to it. And the biggest thing is, this does not mean that you are now a high roller and you shouldn't play as such. You shouldn't be, if you were just like a hand builder, if you were just playing single entry or 3 max, you should not jump into MME. You need to learn MME before you jump into MME. If you are already an MME guy and you've been maxing out like the $4 20 max, or like you've been going the mini max or whatever, it probably doesn't mean that you're ready to start maxing out the flagship, because that's still probably going to be above your bankroll. There are so many things that come into it, and a lot of it has to do with what kind of a player are you? What do you want to get out of your DFS play? And then once you figure that out, then you can start tailoring your bankroll towards how much you have in play for daily and weekly contests. And this is ignoring prop betting, side betting, stuff like that. That's even an entirely other thing when it comes to bankroll. So first off, congrats. Second off, sit down, figure out what you want to do for the next year.
And it's perfectly fine if you're like, I'm just going to take $95,000 out and put it into a retirement fund and put it into your kid's college fund, and it's also perfectly fine. I'm going to take the $95,000 and just buy a fancy car, because that's what I enjoy. Like, it doesn't have to be like, oh, well, now I did, like, it's not this, like, there are plenty. I guarantee you there's some Joe Schmo that's won $1 million on the toilet that cashed it out, paid the taxes, and just like, I'm going to buy a fancy house or whatever. Like, they're not thinking about like, oh, this is money that I'm investing into DFS or into, like, you don't, that doesn't need to be you. And also, even if, like, what contest are you playing? Even it's like where's the best way? Because sometimes volume, like in prop betting, volume matters. So like for me, like I had on NFL, I could bring it up on my phone. Like an NFL yesterday, or overall yesterday, it was mostly NFL. I had 72 props for yesterday's NFL. The total wagered was $2,870. So almost $3,000 in props. I made just under $300. $288.03. Right? In college football, the day before, I'll bring it up because Pickett doesn't have a web interface. So yeah, so on college football, I had 199. It wasn't just college football, it was college football, NBA, NHL. 199 props. 199 bets. I had like $7,000 worth of, right, because it's not like 100, but it's like $30 on this, $50 on that, $20 on this, $60 on that, like all of that. I made on that volume, I made $530.
Which is great ROI.
Right, which it would 10. I'm looking at 8 to 12%, something in that range. Sometimes it'll dip to 6 to 10. But 10% ROI on $5,000 is $500, and that surely beats doing something I hate. How can I do it? Because it's a small percentage of my bankroll, and I'm just doing it volume based on that. And volume based approaches work so much better on lower variance things. Right? I mean, like, I don't mind. Like, dude, a bad prop day is me still winning like 42% of the props. I'm going to be down money, but it's not like DFS where you could be minus 90% on a showdown slate, right? So it's like, where do I want to invest the money? If you wanted to go by volume, I mean, you may find that DFS isn't like it would be much. If your goal is to like, I want to use this as an investment fund to build up just more money, like maybe you don't even play DFS. Maybe truthfully, maybe you'd like, I'm just going to take all the money and put it in the stock market and just get my S&P 500 return, and then never play DFS again. I mean, that's fine also. I mean, like we come from this notion, especially on we're doing DFS content, obviously here at RotoGrinders, of like, oh, well, now I have this money. Now what am I going to do with DFS? It's like, if you get the best return, if that's your goal, James, right? You mentioned goals. Your goal is, how can I use this $100,000 to earn additional money? Well, the answer to that may have nothing to do with DFS, sports betting, or any. I mean, it could be you're investing in your brother's pizzeria. I mean, like it could be, 40 grand. I'm gonna help my wife start her new. She does baking, and she's gonna do catering. Or like, it could be that. Right? Don't just limit yourself to like, oh, well, since I won this money in DFS, it has to stay in DFS. It's like, no, get the hell out of here. If you have something better to do it, don't be a degenerate like us. Right? That's going to just press for 2% edges regardless because we enjoy doing it. Right? But I mean, James, you've heard me say over the past year that, well, yes, I teach DFS content and I do play DFS. I'm going to be playing NHL tonight. Right? I'm going to have some lineups in the $5 poke check. I'm, learning the sport. But yeah, I'll have $75 in lineups in DFS on DraftKings. But in tonight's NHL, I may have like $2,000 worth of NHL props. Right? So like this, I'm like, I don't need to worry about anything else. Like I have to learn DFS and compete against other great players for the equity that's remaining in there. But like, if the sports books are going to put up bum shots on goal props and block shots props,
right?
Like, dude, why am I trying to win $5 grand, 20 grand in the NHL DFS lobby? It's like, I'm going to commit way more money for that. And then, yeah, DFS is, I'll take some shots, right? It's like the 80-20 rule, but it's like 80% is in sports betting and 20% is in DFS. And the thing is, the more and more as time goes on, the more and more I side with the props than I do with the DFS, because it's like, why am I playing all these double ups when it's like all I had to do is like put all this money I could have just put on props and just made like 8%, and it's like, well, yeah, why don't I just take the extra $200, right? Instead of like the $1,700 I put in DFS, it's like that would have been another $200 in props, and I didn't have to sweat. Is Trey McBride's going to catch a ball at the end of the game? Do I have to sweat? Is Lamar going to get the rushing touchdown and not Gus Edwards? Like, dude, most of the props are decided by then. It doesn't matter to me.
Right. Yeah, I struggle with kind of the same idea sometimes. But in relation to like cash versus GPP, and at this point, like for NBA, I'm going to have what would be my cash game volume. I'm just going to put into props and then have my GPP volume in the flagship and just have that. Props are something that I think that people find them boring, and I understand why people find them boring. But they are a really nice source over head-to-heads in terms of floor. And like we were saying, or like you were saying, as far as there are other ways to invest that money, like I could, if I hit for $100,000, I would take 50,000 of it and I would just put it in my Apple savings account, which has a 4.15 APY. And I just get 4% money on that account just for having it, which is cool. That might beat some of my DFS years because I'm such a high variance
in perspective for the entire year. Because I do the same in a money market account and I get about the same rate. $50,000 in an account like that at the end of the year. I mean, it gets paid monthly, but that's $2,000 for just having the money. Like just there. I mean, the difference is that that's an APR versus when you do props. I mean, you're churning this daily, right? So when you say 8%
so you get
return, it's 8% daily on the volume.
Yeah,
you get much more exponential growth on that.
It's just that people love GPPs, and I get it. People love their skill expression in GPPs, and I get that. Once you have money, you have to be smart about making more money. And that's something that has been kind of hard for me personally to learn. Because I grew up and I didn't have money. So then when I had money, 3 years ago or whatever, it was hard for me to learn to just take that money and make more money. But now it's kind of hammered home a little bit more. And I guess that's another lesson that can be taught. Like, you start to think about money differently when you have it. So think about it a little bit more.
I know we got a little off topic or anything from a review, but I mean, I think this is important, and especially if you're here live, right? If you're here live, we take care of you more so than the people that are listening later. So if you have any questions or anything, you always post it in the chat. But just like Donnie said, he's not to switch topics, but about head-to-heads and DraftKings. Normally, I see your team. Your team's fine. I mean, I didn't think that I thought the 3 running back build was better than the 4 wide receiver build. But I mean, when you play AJ Brown in cash, I mean, you're not going to lose. I mean, when he scores 44 whatever points, I mean, whatever the hell he scored. So yeah, so your lineup's fine. Lamar, Kamara, Brees, AJ Brown, Downs, Bourne, McBride, Flowers, Jaguars defense, perfectly fine. I mean, I went down from AJ Brown to Adam Thielen and went up from one of the cheaper running backs to like Downs or Bourne to Pacheco. So like my cash lineup was Lamar, Kamara, Brees, Thielen, Downs, Flowers, McBride, Pacheco, Jags. And I missed on double ups, but I play mostly head to head, so I lost like 15% or something.
I'm realizing
I think I won like 49% of double ups, 49% of head to heads. FanDuel I bombed. FanDuel was horrible. So I don't even worry about FanDuel. Like
I'm realizing that in my article yesterday I wrote LD's defense, which is funny. But yeah, the only thing that I would say that probably would have been a better 1v1 choice there would have been Tank Dell over Josh Downs. And that's just because of ownership. But Tank Dell came in. We were talking a little bit about it earlier, but Tank Dell came in under Nico Collins, and I was blown away by that. I thought Tank Dell would be I thought the ownerships would be flipped. I thought that it would be Nico Collins 12% and Tank Dell at 20%. And I was wrong.
That was an industry associates of ours at RotoGrinders probably had a lot to do with the bump in Nico Collins ownership for whatever reason. But,
yeah, probably.
But people can get ownership and projections and stuff from you if they like your stuff. If you were your projection was more correct than Tony Pollard, right? 1 game sample size, right?
Hey, look, dude, I specialize in smaller samples, right? So there you go. 1 game sample. I was right. Everybody else. But yeah, if you like any of that kind of stuff and want something that is a really good add-on to RotoGrinders, PaterTFS.com. Find all my stuff over there. And you can find me on Twitter at Pater_DFS.
I also have to add the caveat that although you projected Pollard lower, you're also someone that faded Breece Hall.
He's 56% owned in 150, man. This is too much. I thought he would be 40%, and he came in way over. That hurt.
Well, you could pick up. We have conversations. We have chapters on bankroll management, or risk management more so in both the courses. Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports: How to Think Like a Professional DFS Player, as well as how to apply profitable DFS strategies for advanced players, which comes with custom Excel tools. You can pick that up. Me and James both have it available at theoryofdfs.com. We got a new tool coming out here on RotoGrinders. They may be talking about it a little bit later on Grinders Live. We got some basketball today. We got obviously the pre-lock show later tonight for a Monday Night Football. So check that out. You could always get a notification when their shows go live by clicking on that bell, that little bell, little belly bell, right? So click that, click the subscribe button, click the thumbs up button, gives those thumbs on your way out the door. And I'll be on tomorrow, probably talking a little bit about the new tool that we have, our Sim Labs product that you may be able to check out. You may. I'm saying this is a maybe be able to check out tonight and use it for the showdown slate for tonight's football game, possibly for nothing. You may not even need to be a premium member to do that. I'm not sure. Or maybe you do need to be a premium member and you can still check it out. It's one of the two. Become a premium member anyway. Click on that link in the description. Get $10 off your first month. And I'll be talking more about that tomorrow. Maybe Jamino will make an appearance, right? We rarely get Chris Jamino, head of product, and the brains behind all of the data science here at RotoGrinders. Maybe he'll come on tomorrow to explain some of it to you. So join me like you do every weekday, 11 o'clock Eastern. Because I'm always talking about all the things that you're thinking about in daily fantasy, props and pick them on RotoGrinders today.